Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Craig Malkin, a clinical psychologist and lecturer for Harvard Medical School. I'm also the author of Rethinking Narcissism, which is devoted to helping you understand and cope with narcissism in all its forms and all your relationships. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing by turning on the notification bell and giving them a thumbs up if you like them. That always helps as well. I love comments. They often inspire new videos. Today, I want to talk about love bombing, but a different aspect of love bombing than maybe one that you've heard before. That is something I call stealth control. It's sort of a variation on a theme. Stealth control is a term that I introduced in Rethinking Narcissism to describe an aspect of the way people who are extremely narcissistic might cope with their discomfort of being vulnerable or depending on others in healthy ways. If you remember from my previous videos, I talk about attachment insecurity. Briefly, attachment insecurity, again, is a difficulty turning to people with especially vulnerable feelings with an expectation that you will be safe in another person's hands, that you can turn to them for mutual care and comfort. And part of that vulnerability includes asking for things. The more narcissistic somebody is, the less comfortable they are putting themselves in a position of hearing no, of being rejected. It's precisely because of that vulnerability that they have to feeling like somehow they're diminished or they're not good enough. If there's any kind of disagreement or disconnect or rejection, even a small rejection of not wanting to do what it is that they have in mind or what it is they expect, what this leads to is a predictable tell. And there are a number of tells. Hopefully, I'll do a number of videos covering all of them, but this is a particular tell early on that you might be dealing with somebody who's a higher up on the narcissism spectrum, who is more in the extreme range, whether they are covertly or vulnerably narcissistic, or whether they are grandiose, other words, overt or extroverted narcissists. And the way stealth control works is that if I am truly unwilling to ever put myself in the position of putting myself out there and depending on someone and then it not going well, then one way to manage that is to just arrange experience and arrange events to get my needs met, to make sure that my feelings are attended to in the way that I want. This is what stealth control is. And if you want a classic example, and the reason it overlaps with love bombing, if you want to understand that as well, is one of my clients years ago had a relationship that was starting to go sour very quickly in large ways and small ways. But one of the things that happened early on and continued to happen was a man who would show up at the last minute with concert tickets or plans for dinner, basically just sweep my client off her feet, which is fun. That is obviously a lot of fun, and it feels great to have that experience. It happened a lot. And that kind of raised a red flag for me, because what I noticed was that there were no times where she maybe asked for something or said that she would like to do something and that came to fruition. It was always him showing up with these ideas, grand adventures, going on a long bike ride or a hike in the country, all great stuff. But there wasn't really any room for her preferences or her perspective or her needs in the midst of all that fun. This is stealth control. And the reason it is a version of control is because you're never being asked what you want. And if your partner is engaging in this, especially early on, they're not really asking for anything. Again, they're just making it happen. That's pretty typical of a more extroverted or outgoing, more charismatic person with extreme narcissism. In the covert variety, these are people who might never ask for anything directly either, but they have problems that blow up. They need rescuing, things fall apart, And this can happen in people who have trauma and they become overwhelmed and they don't really know what to do. They can have a similar experience. But the difference between somebody who, say, has complex PTSD or even somebody with borderline organization is that what happens when somebody is vulnerably narcissistic and they do this, what they're looking for is special attention. But if you've ever encountered this with somebody who has a lot of trauma, it's very conflicted where they don't necessarily even want you to pitch in. It's all very reluctant. Whereas somebody who is vulnerably narcissistic, they love it if you jump in and try to make things better when they don't have to ask. In both of these instances, the person is able to get their needs met and able to have special attention without ever asking for it at all. That is what stealth control is. If you want to test out whether or not this is what's happening, simple way to do it when you're in the more fun variety of the being swept off the feet, kind of like love bombing, and to determine if it is the kind of love bombing or idealization which is actually stealth control, is to start to make plans of your own. Make a suggestion to say that I would really like to check out this awesome new restaurant. I would love to be able to go with you. I think we would enjoy it together. And if each time you do that, the person introduces reasons, your date introduces reasons they can't, they're too tired, it's too far, and that is a pattern. And if you press on it a little bit, they seem to get frustrated, you're looking at stealth control. The way to test it out, if you think it's happening with somebody who is more vulnerably narcissistic or of that shy, more introverted, sometimes awkward, almost everyday neurotic presentation, you're like, oh, this is sort of a normal person with normal anxieties. I mean, that's how it often comes out with somebody who has more covert variety of narcissism. If you want to test out that it's stealth control, at the first sign of things falling apart or an emergency event like, oh my gosh, my cat, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find somebody with my cat for the week, and could have been planned way ahead of time. You get the picture. I mean, this is something that was not a surprise. Wait. Don't jump in and say you'll take care of it. Don't say it's okay, we'll figure it out. Don't rescue in that way. Wait. Wait and see if they will ask. If they ask you for help, then maybe you can have a conversation about it. But if it's just sort of arranging events to get needs met, that is not something you want to reinforce anyway. And you want to see what happens if you kind of let it go, if they don't actually make a direct request. See, that is the key. Direct request, being clear about needs and feelings, and openly expressing preferences to see if you will go along. If it just kind of happens or plays out, a person never has to do that. And that is really something that makes people who are more narcissistic feel more comfortable. They never have to face that rejection. So those are two ways to respond to it if you see what's happening, and to test out whether or not it's stealth control. I hope you found that helpful. If you do, please give it a big thumbs up and come back for more videos. I plan to do many more. Thanks.